Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murderer. And today, well, we are finding out a little bit more information on this horrific event that happened with the Titan, a submersible built by Oceancrest CEO Stockton Rush. We learned that they found two debris fields, and these debris fields were found after the mothership of the Titan contacted the Coast Guard and alerted them that they had concerns about the submersible because it had not resurfaced. Titan was way over its time to return back to its mother ship. A few days later, an ROV arrives to the site of concern. This ROV is capable of diving over 12,000 feet. This is perfect for where they suspect the submersible to be. We have heard several times now that this famous wreck, the Titanic, is submerged around 12 to 13,000 feet down. We learned that this ROV that they send out there is actually capable of going 6,000 meters. This is around 20,000 feet, guys. Impressive. Based off some sounds the Navy had picked up through what they call acoustics, the ROV makes its dive. As you know, this ROV is looking for any signs of the submersible Titan. And they were really looking into this acoustic sound that they said the Navy picked up that day. So this sound was actually pinpoint to be in the same area as the Titan that day. So this would be one of their biggest tips of where to start searching. Based off of that information, they were able to locate two debris fields. And for the families who were hoping for some sort of light, well, this would be devastating news. It would also break the hope of the entire world. This means they were not okay. So I have this interesting news clip for you where it's showing the robot, the ROV, was able to go down to the site, locate this debris, and bring it back up to the surface. And you know, I've strained my eyes trying to look at this debris that they are loading onto this horizon. And so I want to go over that with you right now. We'll talk about this debris that they're pulling up. I'll share a few pictures that I enhanced a little bit. But it just seems to me it's everything surrounding the hull. I didn't even see the metal frame, so the footing so far. You could make out the tail and where the propellers were. A lot of the debris is covered. They're not sharing it, but I did the best of what we could see. You can't blame them because you got to wonder, is this going to be a criminal investigation now? I mean, you never know these days. I even wondered if it could be sabotage. You just really can't know until you do a complete investigation if it was an accident, sabotage, or neglect. So here's an interesting news piece. If you like this story, you can catch it, the rest of it, at CBC NN Live. There we go. We got it out.
You're seeing in these pictures the Horizon Arctic, the Canadian ship, the first to locate wreckage from the Titan on the ocean floor. The company that operates the ship says debris is on board. The U.S. Coast Guard says two large debris fields were located on the seafloor, not far from the wreckage of the Titanic. And Titan, you'll remember, was diving down nearly 4,000 meters to that iconic wreck when it imploded a week ago Sunday. All 5 people on board were lost. We're going to bring you some expert analysis of what's going on, but let's get you right up to date on the facts that we have. Again, looking at the ship as it came in just about 90 minutes ago. Brett Ruskin is in Halifax with the latest. Brett?
Well, Heather, yeah, so expert analysis coming, some amateur analysis now, because we can see those sheets on the stern of that vessel, and we don't know exactly what's underneath it, but we do know the description of what the U.S. Coast Guard found. They found 5 major pieces of debris. That's according to the U.S. Coast Guard at various news conferences last week, including the tail cone from the Titan submersible. Now, we all kind of know what the submersible looks like these days after days of coverage with that curvature. One of the large pieces of debris on the stern of the Horizon Arctic as it came into St. John's Harbor has a large piece with that same looking curvature. We also know that the dome shape that has the small window in it at the front, as well as one at the rear of the Titan, were both found a fair distance apart in two separate debris fields. We also see on the stern of this vessel what looks to be kind of a concave, a dome-shaped item as well. So again, we don't know exactly what may have been brought up from the bottom in terms of wreckage from the Titan, but we can make some kind of educated guesses as to what some of these pieces might be. And the process now is to literally piece them together, figure out what may have happened down there. Heather.
And that's part of the story we'll get to in a moment. Just to speak to the challenges of all of this, Brett, the Titan, as I mentioned, going down nearly 4,000 meters to where the wreck of the Titanic is.
So that's just absolutely sad, and it's a hard hit of reality. You know, looking at the submersible before and after, it's just so unbelievable and so, oh my gosh, like I said, it's just hitting you in the face, and I can't imagine what the families are going through. But like I said, you know, these pieces that we're looking at here, this looks like the tops and the bottom that house some of the wiring, the propellers, the propulsion systems. But so far, I haven't seen, you know, much of the hull at all. So here I placed a little detail here on the Titan that you can compare with this debris that's coming up right now, and maybe you can find something you recognize. They're taking this investigation very seriously, but it's going to be difficult simply because what it looks like to me is if you took a piece of regular aluminum foil, put it in your hand, a sheet of it, and then crushed it into a ball.
This was a incredibly complex case, and we're still working to develop the details for the timeline involved with this casualty.
Thank you, Admiral. So essentially we found 5 different major pieces of debris that told us that it was the remains of the Titan. The initial thing we found was the nose cone, which was outside of the pressure hull. We then found a large debris field. Within that large debris field, we found the front end bell of the pressure hull. That was the first indication that there was a catastrophic event. Shortly thereafter, we found a second smaller debris field. Within that debris field, we found the other end of the pressure hull, the aft end bell, which was basically comprised of the totality of that pressure vessel. We continue to map the debris field, and as the Admiral said, we will do the best we can to fully map out what's down there.
We were able to get some of that footage, and we'll go over that in just a second, which will be the end of this video. But can you imagine there are people wondering who's paying for the cost of this search?
British billionaire Hamish Harding, French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet, and Stockton Rush, OceanGate's American CEO who piloted the Titan.
It's an opportunity to learn from the incident and then work with our international partners worldwide to prevent a similar occurrence.
The investigation is multinational, involving Canada as well as the UK and France. Now questions are being raised about who should pay for the massive search and recovery.
The Coast Guard doesn't charge for search and rescue, nor do we associate a cost with human life. We always answer the call.
That underwater disaster near the wreckage of the Titanic, we're hearing from the wife and mother of 2 of the men who were killed when their submersible imploded. Here's CBS's Roxana Saberi.
The sentence, "we lost comm," I think that would be a sentence I would never want to hear in my life.
When the submersible Titan lost contact on its way to the Titanic, Christine Daoud was waiting on the surface for her husband Shahzada and son Suleiman to return.
I think I lost hope when we passed the 96 hours mark.
In an interview with our partners at the BBC, she said she'd given 19-year-old Suleiman, a Rubik's Cube whiz, her spot on the vessel.
He wanted to solve the Rubik's Cube at the deepest point at the Titanic. He was so excited about this.
The Coast Guard is now leading an investigation.
So there you go. So you had the Coast Guard leading the investigation, but what you don't hear in the media much is there were friends behind the scene trying to get the, what was the name of that ship? I'll probably say it wrong. Magellan, I believe, to get that ship out there to the area where they last had contact with Titan itself. And it seemed to be a problem to get the help out there quick enough for people who might be in a dire situation, because at the time they weren't certain that this sub actually imploded. If you read the comments across the board, a lot of them were saying, who's paying for all this? A lot of them are angry because these are a bunch of wealthy people spending this buku loads of money to go see the Titanic, which is way deep in the ocean, so around 13,000 feet. Getting on this vessel that a lot of people said seemed to be questioned for years. If they were going to be that stupid, why spend the money to help them? Well, then again, ethics comes into play. Whether you have money or don't have money, you are a human being and you are loved by someone. And life matters to everyone. But that was shut down pretty quickly at the beginning. Let's go over this debris that's coming up. And so this was what a lot of the searchers, once they got the ROV down to the depths they needed to get it in order to find the debris of the Titan, they were hoping at, there was a chance that the hull was still intact, though they were coming through and seeing these pieces of that vessel. Sadly, they come across the front bell, which is where the plexiglass was. The plexiglass not inside, and the bell not attached to the hull. At that point, they said it was common sense, basically, to know that this was catastrophic. There was no chances of finding anyone alive at that point. So a lot of things I was thinking about, and I'm not an engineer, is this hull, which was supposed to be made of carbon fiber and other materials, had not been tested correctly. And the fact that they had a cylinder and that they had these other rings attached to that cylinder, I believe that's where the problem's going to lie, in my opinion, because the carbon fiber, the little bit of research that I did do, will crush a little bit each time that pressure hits it. And a few test products, I guess, that I did see online where they're using hydraulics, once it was crushed, the cracks stayed there, and it stayed a little bit shorter than it was before. So I'm thinking those multiple dives, that hull was crushing in on itself a little bit, till finally pulling away from the ring system and the frames and everything else, until it just caused a huge problem. That's speculation on the carbon fiber. A lot of people believe that the plexiglass just crashed. It crushed in and created this implosion. The truth is, there are hundreds of things that can have gone wrong. He was not using the usual sphere shape that a lot of these submersible operators use. The sad part about this is here's this guy's in a dire situation. Of course, yeah, he was being stupid, but to him, he was being an adventurer. And these other people that operate subs, though they've been tested, a little bit better, they too are adventurers. So anything could go wrong with them too at any time. I think the most important thing to point out is the fact that he didn't just put himself in this dangerous situation. He was putting other people, paying customers, mind you, So let's talk a little bit more about the debris that they found. So a lot of it, they found quite a few big chunks of what was left of this submersible. From what I could see that they hauled in, I mean, I didn't see it. They had little pieces in boxes or whatnot. But as far as I can tell, I haven't seen even half of this vessel. And something that a lot of people have noticed easily is the fact that no one has identified any part of this hull as of right now, at least for what they're exposing through the media and news at this time. So a lot of people believe most likely it is the hull that he was so adamant about being different but also successful. And so the Horizon, a Canadian ship, pulled this debris to Canada, sorry guys. And we can see where a few media sources were able to record the best they could, because they were trying to cover this debris up so people couldn't really see it. And you could see the front of it. This is another ring that would surround the hull. And what broke during my time making this was they said that they did recover a few human remains. So we don't, somewhere within this debris, we don't know how or where. And a lot of people were not expecting that because of how they said how devastating this implosion would be to a human. So here that looks familiar to the end of the sub, and then you have what looks like would house the propellers, and then another, some type of skin. Again, this is not the outcome that the world was hoping for, but hopefully these lives are not in vain, and they'll be able to learn a lot from this and be able to prevent this type of thing from happening in the future. And don't forget, guys, to share your thoughts below. How do you think this thing imploded? I want to send my love and my thoughts out to those that were involved in a search, as well as those who lost loved ones. I'm going to leave you guys with this piece where they are discussing the possible finding of remains. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, commenting, and being so kind. Have a good weekend.
Human remains from the seafloor in the area of that doomed submersible. I want to put up some video from earlier today here on Live Now from Fox as they salvaged some pieces of this from the ocean floor there off the North Atlantic. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, they received debris and evidence recovered from the seafloor at the site of that Titan submersible. After consultation with the international partners, investigative agencies, the Marine Board of Investigation intends to transport the evidence aboard a U.S. Coast Guard cutter to a port in the United States where they will be able to facilitate analysis and testing. United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis of presumed human remains that have been carefully recovered within the wreckage at the site of the incident. They said in a statement, the chair of the MBI, the Marine Board of Investigation, said, quote, "I am grateful for the coordinated international and interagency support to recover and preserve this vital evidence at extreme offshore distances and depths. The evidence will provide investigators from several international jurisdictions with critical insight into the cause of this tragedy. There is still a substantial amount of work to be done to understand the factors that led to the catastrophic loss of the Titan and help ensure a similar tragedy does not occur again." Of course, this as they remains, the presumed human remains recovered within the wreckage of the submersible. They said in that release they will use medical professionals to analyze the remains. Also on Wednesday, huge pieces of the submersible were hoisted into a Canadian pier, as visualized here on your screen, as you can see them bringing this back some hundreds of miles off the coast as they were touring the Titanic. It went missing more than a week ago, and the 5 people aboard